the Home Secretary, James Cleverly, is with us. I think your speech said it all. I mean, it was an acceptance speech, but we know you to be quite outgoing and quite ebullient. Not tonight.
Well, my friend and colleague Priti Patel is just giving her acceptance speech, so if you forgive me if I don't raise my voice too highly, because I don't want to interrupt her. But it's been an incredibly difficult night. It's a privilege to be returned as the MP for Braintree, and I'm very grateful that that has happened. But that has got to be tempered with the realisation that we are no longer in government, and it's not just that. It's the nature of why that has happened. So we need to think about what our offer is to the British people, what our offer is to the voters of this country, think about why this has happened, and perhaps, I think, have the humility and professionalism to take a short period of time of reflection before we start trying to answer what is, I think, a very, very important and difficult question that we've been asked tonight by the voters.
You've lost so very many of your cabinet colleagues. Even on a personal level, that must be painful for you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're not just colleagues. In many instances, they're friends, people you work with quite regularly, people that I've campaigned with. So it is difficult, and of course their staff, the people that work for them in their parliamentary offices, they will have an uncertain future. It's the nature of our democracy, and democracy is both a beautiful and brutal thing. And tonight it feels particularly difficult for us in the Conservative Party.
James, it's Beth Rigby here. We saw each other out on the campaign trail, didn't we, up in Nottinghamshire last week, and you were going around the country. You were still fighting the fight. You were still trying to talk up the prospects of some sort of success. You said to me back then last week that whatever happened next, the party had to stay in the centre ground, the centre-right ground, but you emphasised the word centre. What's your message to colleagues this morning? And you wouldn't answer the question to me or Trevor, because Trevor asked you as well last week. Are you considering running for leadership?
So, in terms of what the party needs to do, it's not just about moving, it's about making sure that we are a broad-based party. I grew up looking at the Conservative Party under Margaret Thatcher, and she was a leader of intense principle and philosophy, but she ran a government that was a pretty broad church. And we need to make sure that we are a party in the modern era which encompasses the full range of centre-right thinking. I said in my acceptance speech, it would be wrong for us to believe that we can just apply or promote simple, thin and I think impractical solutions for the challenges that we face both here as a country and globally. And I think it would be unprofessional for politicians of any party to suggest there are easy answers to these difficult questions. So we have to be disciplined, we have to be thoughtful, and with regard to future leadership, I stand by what I said at the time. My focus has been on retaining my seat. It was closer in terms of results than ones that I've had in the past. I'm very glad that I was relentlessly focused on being returned as an MP, and what might happen in the future, I'll leave that for the near future.
James, Trevor here. Speaking of humility, listening and being thoughtful, does the broad church, the full range of centre-right opinion, include Nigel Farage?
I've been asked this a number of times, and my view remains unchanged. He has, through this campaign, said it is his mission. And it's quite interesting what his motivation was, not to get as many Reform MPs elected as possible, and indeed it seems that they've had success, but modest success. in doing that. But his main motivator was to harm the Conservative Party. I cannot see how that is a credible application for being part of the Conservative Party. So my view is that it is voters who we should appeal to rather than members of Parliament of other parties. And if we get that offer to the British people right, I can absolutely see, with a very large majority but on a very modest predicted share of vote, the Labour Party tonight have every reason to be happy. But I think they also should have the humility to recognise it was not a ringing endorsement by the British people. And the lesson I think my party should take from that is that if we listen carefully to what the British people are telling us, then there is every reason to believe, just as Labour went from a very bad defeat to a victory, we could do likewise.
How can you say it's not a ringing endorsement, James Cleverly? Labour have got 403 seats and you guys have got 111.
As I said, they have every reason to be very, very happy, but they should also, I think, reflect on the fact that they are predicted to have that very large majority, which is, and as I say, I'm not taking that away from them, but it is on a fairly modest share of the vote for such a margin. And the proportion of British voters that did not vote for either the Labour Party or the Conservative Party, and I haven't crunched the numbers fully, is probably larger than we've seen in a very, very long time. And we should, all parties, Labour, Conservative particularly, think, why is that? What lessons could we or should we take from other elections around the world? And how should we respond to that? But these are not off-the-cuff actions that we should take. We should think carefully about this and not jump to conclusions.
James, I think you're sort of trying to underplay Labour's achievement here. I mean, this is an historic achievement in terms of British political history, and these are the worst results ever in the history of the Conservative Party. Now, I appreciate you're speaking, honestly and openly, but I'm not sure you're calling that quite right. The scale of your defeat is huge, and Labour, by whichever means, has won an historic majority. Can you not recognise that?
I did. I mean, I did, and I said that they have every reason to be very, very happy with the results that they've got. They have got, Keir Starmer has secured what looks to be a large majority for the Labour Party, and I absolutely recognise that. But what I've also said is that we need to be thoughtful, and all of us, including the Conservative Party, and I also think the Labour Party, and maybe I shouldn't be giving the Labour Party advice, but the simple fact of the matter is the proportion of the British people who voted for the two main parties, the traditional two parties of government, is, I think, and as I say, I will need to crunch the numbers, I think a smaller proportion of the vote than we've seen for a very, very, very long time. And Labour can do one of two things, Andy. They can either ignore that fact, or they can reflect on that fact. Because we are now in opposition, we have no choice but to reflect on that fact. I think it would be better for British politics as a whole if both parties thought carefully about why so many British voters did not feel comfortable putting their votes for either Labour or Conservative. Okay. I know my party will think about that, and as I say, perhaps it's foolish of me giving advice to Labour, but I think Labour should do the same thing as well.
Go and get some sleep. It's good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you for taking the time.